Hey crew, it's Pitt and I am back with some more ancient lore. Today we are continuing our journey along with Dante Alighieri through the various stages of the afterlife. We have completed hell. We are now really beginning purgatory. We will be reading Canto 3 through 8 today and discussing in between. So if you want to start at the beginning or if you're confused about anything that I say along the way, there are various playlists in the corner up here and in the box down below, as well as the link to the original source material. Let's dive in and check out Purgatorio, Canto 3. Inasmuch as the instantaneous flight had scattered them asunder over the plain, turned to the mountain whither reason spurs us, I pressed me close unto my faithful comrade, and how without him had I kept my course? Who would have led me up along the mountain? He seemed to me within himself remorseful. O noble conscience, and without a stain, how sharp a sting is trivial fault to thee? After his feet had laid aside the haste which mars the dignity of every act, my mind, that hitherto had been restrained, let loose its faculties as if delighted, and I my sight directed to the hill that highest towards the heaven uplifts itself. The sun that in our rear was flaming red was broken in front of me into the figure which had me in the stoppage of its rays. Unto one side I turned me with the fear of being left alone, when I beheld only in front of me the ground obscured. Why dost thou still mistrust? My comforter began to say to me, turned wholly round. Dost thou not think me with thee, and that I guide thee? 'Tis evening there already, where is buried the body within which I cast a shadow. 'Tis from Brundusium ta'en, and Naples has it. Now, if in front of me no shadow fall, marvel not at it any more than at the heavens, because one ray impedeth not another. To suffer torments both of cold and heat. Bodies like this that power provides, which wills that how it works be not unveiled to us. Insane is he who hopeth that our reason can traverse the illimitable way which the one substance in three persons follows. Mortals, remain contented at the Quira, for if ye had been able to see it all, no need there were for Mary to give birth. And ye which have been desiring without fruit those whose desire would have been quieted, which evermore is given them for a grief. I speak of Aristotle, and of Plato, and many others. And here bowed his head, and more he said not, and remained disturbed. We came meanwhile unto the mountain's foot. There, so precipitate, we found the rock, that nimble legs would there have been in vain. Twixt Laurice and Turbia, the most desert, the most secluded pathway is a stair, easy and open if compared with that. Who knoweth now upon which hand the hill slopes down? My master said, his footsteps staying, so that who goeth without wings may mount. And while he held his eyes upon the ground, examining the nature of the path, and I was looking up around the rock. On the left hand appeared to me a throng of souls that moved their feet in our direction, and did not seem to move. They came so slowly. Lift up thine eyes, I said to the master. Behold, on this side, who will give us counsel? If thou of thine own self can have it not. Then he looked at me, and with frank expression replied, Let us go there, for they come slowly, and thou be steadfast in thy hope, sweet son. Still was that people as far off from us after 1,000 steps of ours, I say, as a good thrower with his hand would reach. When they all crowded into the hard masses of the high bank, and motionless stood and close, and he stands still to look who goes in doubt. O happy dead! O spirits elect already! Virgilius made beginning. By that peace which I believe is waiting for you all, tell us upon what side of the mountain slope, so that the going up be possible. For to lose time irks him most who most knows. as sheep come issuing forth from out of the fold by ones and twos and threes, and the others stand timidly, holding down their eyes and nostrils. And what the foremost does, the others do, huddling themselves against her if she stop, simple and quiet, and the wherefore know not. So, moving to approach us thereupon, I saw the leader of that fortunate flock, modest in face and dignified in gait, as soon as those in the advance saw broken the light upon the ground at my right side, so that from me the shadow reached the rock, they stopped and backwards drew themselves somewhat, and all the others who came after them, not knowing why or wherefore, did the same. Without your asking, I confess to you, this is a human body which you see, whereby the sunshine on the ground is cleft. Marvel ye not thereat, but be persuaded that not without a power which comes from heaven doth he endeavor to surmount this wall. The master thus, and said those worthy people, return ye then and enter in before us, making a signal with the back of the hand. And one of them began, Whosoever thou art, thus going done, turn thine eyes, consider well if ever thou saw me in the other world. I turned towards him and looked at him closely. Blond was he, beautiful, and of noble aspect, but one of his eyebrows had a blow divided. Even with humility I had disclaimed ever having seen him. Now behold, he said, and showed me high upon his breast a wound. Then said he with a smile, I am Manfredi, the grandson of the Empress Constanza. Therefore, when thou returnest, I beseech thee, go to my daughter beautiful, the mother of Sicily's honor and of Aragon's, and the truth teller if aught else be told. After I had my body lacerated by these two mortal stabs, I gave myself, weeping, to him who willingly doth pardon. Horrible my iniquities had been, but infinite goodness hath such ample arms that it receives whatever turns to it. Had but Cosenza's pastor, who in chase of me had sent by Clement at that time, and God read understandingly this page, the bones of my dead body still would be at the bridgehead, near unto Benveniento, under the safeguard of the heavy cairn. Now the rain bathes and moves them in the wind, beyond the realm, almost beside the Verde, where he transported them with tapers quenched. By Malcion of theirs is not so lost eternal love that it cannot return, so long as hope has of anything of green. True is it who in contumacy dies of holy church, though penitent at last, must wait upon the outside of this bank. 30 times told the time that he has been, in his presumption, unless such decree, shorter by means of righteous prayers become. See now if thou hast power to make me happy, by making known unto my good Costanza how thou hast seen me, and this band beside, for those on earth can much advance us here. And so ends Canto 3. And here we have some reluctant souls to enter, or to do what they're supposed to be doing, which is passing through purgatory, right? They're chasing the one person who doesn't even know why they're leaving. And then we also have this other one, which was self-ending and somehow wound up in purgatory instead of hell, which is definitely not Catholic doctrine, but is probably closer to the truth than anything else. Self-deletion is a terrible thing. It does not mean that it is outside of the scope of the plan, though, right? God has a plan for everything, even the things that he doesn't want to happen. There are things that you do all the time, things that I do all the time that he doesn't want to happen. But he has the plan in the contingency of you making a really stupid decision. And I don't believe it'll damn you to eternal damnation if you're torn up and destroyed. It's the wrong decision every single time. But I don't think it's going to be an eternally damning one, right? Some people who make that decision have had plenty enough suffering already, and they're ready for the next round, and I can fully understand that. Next up, Purgatorio, Canto 4. Whenever by delight or else by pain that sees any faculty of ours, wholly to that soul collects itself, it seemeth that no other power it heeds than this against that error in which thinks. One soul above another kindles in us. And hence, whenever aught is heard or seen which keeps the soul intently bent upon it, time passes on, and we perceive it not, because one faculty is that which listens, and other that which the soul keeps entire. That is as if in bonds, and that is free. Of this I had experience positive in hearing and in gazing at that spirit, where 50 full degrees uprisen was. The sun and I had not perceived it when we came to where those souls with one accord cried out unto us, Here is what you ask. A greater opening ofttimes hedges up, but with but a little forkful of his thorns. The villager, what time the grape embrowns, then was the passageway through which ascended. Only my leader and myself behind him, after that company departed from us. One climbs San Leo and descends in Noli, and mounts the summit of Bismantova, with feet alone, but here one needs must fly, with the swift pinions and the plumes, I say, of great desire, conducted after him who gave me hope and made a light for me. We mounted upward through the rifted rock, and on each side of the border pressed upon us, and feet and hands of the ground beneath required. When we were come upon the upper rim of the high bank, out on the open slope, my master, said I, what way shall we take? And he to me, No step of thine descend, still up the mount behind me wend thy way, till some sage escort shall appear to us. The summit was so high it vanquished sight, and the hillside precipitous far more than line from the middle quadrant to the center. Spent with fatigue was I when I began. O my sweet father, turn thee, and behold how I remain alone unless thou stay. O son, he said, up yonder, drag thyself, pointing me to a terrace somewhat higher, which on that side encircles all the hill. These words of his so spurred me on that I strained every nerve, behind him scrambling up until the circle was beneath my feet. Thereon ourselves we seated, both of us, turned to the east from which we had ascended, for all men are delighted to look back. To the low shores mine eyes I first directed, then to the sun uplifted them, and wondered that on the left hand we were smitten by it. The poet well perceived that I was wholly bewildered at the chariot of the light where twixt us and the Aquilian it entered. Whereon he said to me, if Castor and Pollux were in the company of yonder mirror that up and down conducteth with its light, thou wouldst behold the zodiac's jagged wheel, revolving still more near unto the bears, unless it swerved aside from its old track. How that may be wouldst thou have power to think, collected in thyself. Imagine Zion, together with this mount on earth to stand, so that they both one sole horizon have, and hemispheres diverse, whereby the road which Phaeton, alas, knew not to drive. Thou'lt see how of necessity must pass this on one side when that upon the other, if thine intelligence right clearly heed. Truly, my master, said I, never yet saw I so clearly as I now discern, there, where my wit appeared incompetent, that the mid-circle of supernal motion, which in some art is the equator called, and remains between the sun and winter, for reasons which thou sayest departeth hence towards the septentrion, what time the Hebrews beheld it towards the region of the heat. But if it please thee, I fain would learn how far we have to go, for the hill rises higher than the eyes of mine have power to rise. And he to me, this mount is such that ever at the beginning down below 'tis tiresome, and the more one climbs the less it hurts. Therefore, when it shall seem so pleasant to thee that going up shall be to thee as easy as going down the current in a boat, then at this pathway's ending thou wilt be. There to repose thy panting breath expect. No more I answer, and this I know for true. And he finished uttering these words. The voice close by us sounded, Peradventure thou wilt have need of sitting down ere that. At sound thereof each one of us turned round and saw upon the left hand a great rock, and which neither I nor he before had noticed. Thither we drew, and there were persons there who in the shadow stood behind the rock, and as one through indolence is wont to stand. And one of them, who seemed to me fatigued, was sitting down, and both his knees embraced, holding his face low down between them, he bowed. "O my sweet lord," I said, "do turn thine eye on him who shows himself more negligent than even Sloth herself his sisters were." Then he turned round to us, and he gave heed, just lifting up his eyes above his thigh, and said, "Now thou go up, for thou art valiant." Then knew I who he was, and the distress that still a little did my breathing quicken. My going to him hindered not, and after I came to him, he hardly raised his head, saying, "Hast thou seen clearly how the sun over thy left shoulder drives his chariot?" His sluggish attitude and his curt words a little unto laughter moved my lips. Then I began, "Belacquia, I grieve not for thee henceforth. But tell me, wherefore seated in this place art thou? Waitest thou an escort, or has thy usual habit seized upon thee?" And he, "O brother, what's the use of climbing, since to my torment would not let me go the angel of God who sitteth at the gate? First, heaven must needs so long revolve me around the outside thereof, as in my life it did, since the good sighs I to the end postponed. Unless ever that some prayer bring me aid, which rises from a heart that lives in grace, what profit others that in heaven are not heard?" Meanwhile the poet was before me mounting, saying, "Come now, see, the sun has touched meridian, and from the shore the night covers already with her foot Morocco." And this is interesting, because this seems to me, this canto, and possibly the one before, but this one for sure, is more than it seems. Some people are aware there are secret organizations out there. Some of them are tasked with safekeeping of knowledge, and some of them have been subverted to nefarious means, and some of them have just been accused of that. There are skulls and bones, and those are probably nefarious. And then there are the everyday working man who is looking for people who see a little bit farther than other people do, and so they get into a club. Now, I'm not a member of that club. I don't have no secret handshakes. Everything I do is free and above board. I don't have to answer to anyone, so I get to talk about things. But this particular club, for the most part, is good. They are the people who guard the light. They guard the knowledge so that it does indeed get past the purges, get past the burnings, get past the things that the masses tend to demand when the pendulum swings to the right. I'm doing the opposite of that, right? I am freely disseminating. I'm not part of the clubs because of that, right? I'm not going to have to answer to things in the ways that they do. Some parts of those clubs are recruiting grounds for terrible things. Some parts have no idea. I call it the one mother-father rule, right? There's only got to be one bad guy in the organization calling shots and recruiting for another organization that exists underneath. It's not everybody in the club. It's just one guy, and it's probably not the guy in charge of that particular club. Most of the people who are in that club are good, hardworking, honest, intelligent people who are seeking to do better in life. All of that to say that this particular bit of knowledge is part of that. This is mindset knowledge right here. This mountain that you have to climb that gets easier as you go along, it is absolutely got everything to do with what we talked about when we was in the Kabbalion. It has absolutely everything to do with what is on the Infinite Integration playlist, which is also in the same corner. It's the 8 laws of creation, the 8 harmonics of life. All of these things tell you that your mindset make a big difference in life. The power of perspective is a big one. The more you climb the mountain, the easier it becomes. And that is truth. That is wisdom, and that has been hidden from most people. These clubs safeguard that knowledge for a reason. So the first part of this, where you're climbing up, that is definitely like those who have the keys recognize the locks. And that is one of the locks. I didn't see those locks in hell. We are seeing them in purgatory, which is interesting. Now, the 3 parts of this, the Trinity is a real thing, and it is a real concept outside of being a real thing. There is the body, which is the flesh suit. There is the soul, which is the individualized part of God that makes the decisions, that resides inside. And then there is the spirit, which melds the two together. You have 7 chakras that from stem to stern, and then you have 1 more on the outside for a total of 8 that you have access to for yourself. There's a whole process that goes into that. I suggest you check those things out, but they are tied together through a process. And here's a big one. Like, y'all don't even know. This information is going to be in the middle of a purgatory video that almost nobody's going to watch, but it's okay. The 3 that tie them together, right? You see this number behind me right here? 138. That's an important number. There's a guy, Jason Brashears over at Archaics. He uses this number all the time, and he doesn't understand it. The one is the one. It is all things. The three is the Trinity. It is the mind, the body, and the spirit, which allows the things to happen. We've got whole talks about that. And then the 8 is the 8 chakras that you have access to. It is the melding of the 8 into 3 into 1, which allows manifestation to happen. You have to take the energy that is coming outside from your divine chakra and process it through the filters that are you, the 7 different ones that are internal. You take that energy and you process it through there. There is a whole process where you pull energy up through the bottom and you pull energy down through the top, and you meld them through the 3 points, the top, the bottom, and the middle one. There are 3 that meld the 8 into 1. 138. It is very important. It happens a lot. The number 3 is important because it is a key. I thought there were 33 cantos, but we had 34, and so that threw me a little bit there. But then we have all the cantos are comprised of precise syllable counts and precise number counts, right? Everything's thrown off by being put into English, but some of the knowledge seems to get through, and this appears to be pointed in that direction. This is more doctrinal for me than it is for the Catholic Church, right? And he was a Catholic, but being part of that club puts you beyond the restrictions of the control systems. There's a reason why it is a secret club. There's a reason why they have secret handshakes and secret initiation ceremonies and say oaths and all of those things. I understand why they do it. I'm just not part of it. And so I get to talk about the things that they hold for themselves. Some of this stuff is things that they hold for themselves. So this is an interesting one for me. I'm really getting into this a lot more than I did into hell. Next up, Purgatorio, Canto 5. I had already from those shades departed, and followed in the footsteps of my guide, when from behind, pointing his finger at me, one shouted, "See, it seems as if shone not the sunshine on the left of him below, and like one living seems he to conduct him." My eyes I turned at the utterance of these words, and saw them watching with astonishment. But me and the light which was broken? "Why doth thy mind so occupy itself," the master said, "that thou thy pace doth slacken? What matters it to thee what here is whispered? come after me, and let the people talk. Stand like a steadfast tower that never wags its top for all the blowing of the winds. Forevermore the man in him, forevermore the man in whom is springing thought upon thought removes from him the mark, but the force of one the other weakens. What could I say in answer but, I come? I said it somewhat with that color tinged which makes a man of pardon sometimes worthy. So meanwhile, along the mountain-side across came people in advance of us a little, singing the Miserere, verse by verse. When they became aware, I gave no place, every passage of their sunshine through my body. They changed their song into a long, hoarse, and two of them, in form of messengers, ran forth to meet us and demanded of us, Of your condition make us cognizant. And said my master, Ye can go your way and carry back again to those who sent you that this one's body is of very flesh. If they stood still because they saw his shadow, and I suppose enough has answered them, him let them honor, and may profit them. Vapors enkindled saw I never so swiftly as early nightfall cleave the air serene, nor at the set of sun the clouds of August. But upward they returned in briefer time, and on arriving with the others wheeled towards us like troops that run without a rein. This folk that presses unto us is great, and cometh to implore thee, saith the poet. So still go onward, and in going, listen. O soul that goest to beatitude with the same members wherewith thou wast born, shouting they came. A little stay thy steps. Look, if thou ever hast any of us seen, so that over yonder thou bear news of him. And why dost thou go on? Why not stay? Long since we were all slain by violence, and sinners even to the latest hour. Then did a light from heaven admonish us, so that both penitent and pardoning, forth from life we issued reconciled to God, who with desire to see him stirs our hearts. And I, although I gaze into your faces, no one I recognize, but if may please you, aught I have power to do, ye well-born spirits. Speak ye, and I will do it, by that peace which, following the feet of such a guide from world to world, makes itself sought by me. And one began, Each one has confidence in thy good offices without an oath, unless the eye cannot cut off the eye will. Whence I, who speak alone before the others, pray thee, if ever thou dost see the land that twixt Romagna lies and that of Charles, thou be so courteous to me of thy prayers in fano that they pray for me devoutly, that I may purge away my grave offences. For thence was I but the deep wounds, through which issued the blood wherein I had my seat, were dealt me in bosom of the Antinori. There, where I thought to be the most secure, 'twas he of Este had it done, who held me in hatred far beyond what justice willed. But if towards the Mira I had fled when I was overtaken at Oriaco, I still should be over yonder where men breathe. I ran to the lagoon, and reeds and mire did so entangle me, I fell and saw there a lake made from my veins upon the ground. Then said another, be that desire fulfilled that draws thee to the lofty mountain, and thou with pious pity aidest mine. I was of Montefeltro, and am Buoncante, Giovanni, nor one of the other cares for me, hence among these I go with downcast front. And I to him, what violence or what chance led thee astray so far from Campaldino, that never has thy sepulture been known? Oh, he replied, at Casentino's foot a river crosses named Arciano, born above the hermitage in Apennine. There, where the name thereof becometh void, did I arrive, pierced through and through the throat, fleeing on foot and bloodying the plains. There my sight lost I, and my utterance ceased in the name of Mary, and thereat I fell, and tenantless my flesh remained. Truth will I speak, and repeat it to the living. God's angel took me up, and he of hell shouted, O thou from heaven, why dost thou rob me? Thou bearest away the eternal part of him, but for one poor little tear, that takes him from me, but with the rest I'll deal in another fashion. Well knowest thou how in the air is gathered that humid vapor which to water turns, soon as it rises where the cold doth grasp it. He joined that evil will which seeks evil, to intellect and move the mist and wind by means of power which his own nature gave. Thereafter, when the day was spent, the valley, from Prato Magno to the great yoke, covered with fog, and made the heaven above intent, so that the pregnant air to water changed. Down fell the rain, and the gullies came, whatever of it earth tolerated not. And as it mingled with the mighty torrents, towards the royal river with such speed it headlong rushed that nothing held it back. My frozen body near unto its outlet, the robust Archean found, and into Arno thrusted, and loosed from my breast the cross I made of me when agony overcame me. It rolled me on the banks of the bottom, then with its booty covered and begirt me. And when thou hast returned to the world, and rested thee from thy long journeying, after the second followed the third spirit, do thou remember me, who I am, the Pia. Sayana made me, and unmade me in Marama. He knoweth it who had encircled first, espousing me my finger with his gem. And again, interesting, because if the first part was giving us the base, where you start and what you have to do to begin, because the first people were not moving, and then you chose to start up the mountain, right? So then we got the red, which was the people who were afraid to start up the mountain, and actually beginning the journey is the balancing of the base. And then we had the orange, which was the next level up, which has to do with creation of the path and the destiny, right? That is where the sexual energy lies, and that is the creation of things. Then we get into the solar plexus, which is where we're at here, which would be yellow. And we told that the color was the color associated with not wanting to be heroic, right? And then it brings us into the green, which is where the actual things happen. And then it's telling you that if you're doing the things and you're going through that particular step, you can create things. Now, this thing that it tells you that it's possible to create, I believe that. I know that sounds crazy to some people, and I am okay with sounding crazy to people, because I have seen and done some pretty amazing things. I have manifested healing in my own body in a very real way. I have, as far as I understand, changed the weather once. I have done that, and it was not a good idea. It wound up with me injured. But it is possible to focus the energies of creation in such a way as you can change wind currents. You can change the weather. You can create storms, and you can dissipate them. It is extremely tricky to play with the weather. I do not recommend it, right? Arbitrarily, for sure. But it is, at least in my opinion, theoretically possible to do the things that are said here through the proper manipulation of energies. But the thing is, what is happening here is missing the entire top half of the stack, which means that it is going to end in the wrong manner. This is an interesting application of that particular concept. While talking about the things that are possible in code, without the keys you do not unlock this, and with the consequences described in the text for doing this in an unbalanced way. Without the keys, it's useless to anyone. But with the keys, you can absolutely interpret this. That may be entirely me projecting my own beliefs upon it, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels really right. And so, again, I am having some much more interest into Purgatory than I had into Hell. And I may have to go back and reread Hell in a new light when we're done with these next two. I think that maybe he wasn't ready for the message that he's giving now when he actually wrote those, though. So it's interesting to see, like, this is a definite progression of how the text is executed. Like, this is this still has the history in it, but this actually has some practicality in it too. And that's interesting. I mean, the other one was, yeah, don't sin, but even with the descriptors of what happens if you do and all of that, it still wasn't as meaty as this. All right, so now let's dive into Purgatorio, Canto 6. Whenever is broken up the game of Zara, he who has lost remains behind, despondent. The throes repeating and in sadness learns. The people with the other all depart. One goes in front and one behind doth pluck him, and at his side one brings himself to mind. He pauses not, and this and that one hears. They crowd no more to whom his hand he stretches, and from the throng he thus defends himself. Even such was I in that dense multitude, turning to them this way and that my face, and promising, I freed myself therefrom. There was the Arantine, who from the arms untamed of Gen de Taco had his death, and he who, fleeing from pursuit, was drowned. There was, imploring with his hands outstretched, Frederick Novello, and that one of Pisa, who made the good Marzucco seem so strong. I saw Count Orso, and the soul divided by hatred and envy from its body, and it declared and not for the crime committed. Pierre de la Brosse, I say, and here provide, while still on the earth, the Lady of Brabant, so that for this she be of no worse flock. As soon as I was free from all those shades, who only prayed that someone else may pray, so as to hasten their becoming holy. Begin I. It appears that thou deniest, O light of mine, expressly in some text, that orison can bend decree of heaven. And nevertheless these people pray for this. Might then their expectation bootless be? Or is to me thy saying not quite clear? And he to me, my writing is explicit and not fallacious, and the hope of these, if with sane intellect 'tis well regarded. For top of judgment doth not veil itself, because the fire of love fulfills at once what he must satisfy who here installs him. And there, where I affirmed that proposition, defect was not amended by prayer, because the prayer from God was separate. Verily, in so deep a questioning do not decide unless she tell it thee, who light twixt truth and intellect shall be. I know not if thou understand, I speak of Beatrice. Her shalt thou see above, smiling and happy, on this mountain's top. And I, good leader, let us make more haste, for I no longer tire me as before, and see, even now, the hill a shadow casts. We will go forward with this day, he answered, as far as now is possible for us, but otherwise the fact is that thou thinkest. Ere thou art up there, thou shalt see return him, who now hides himself behind the hill, so that thou dost not interrupt his rays. But yonder, there, behold, a soul that stationed all alone is looking hitherward. It will point out to us the quickest way. We came up unto it, O Lombard soul, how lofty and disdainful didst bear thee, and grand and slow in the moving of thine eyes. Nothing whatever did it say to us, but let us go our way, eyeing us only after the manner of a couchant lion. Still, near to it Virgilius drew, entreating that it would point us out the best ascent, and it replied not to his demand, but of our native land and of our life it questioned us, and the sweet guide began. Mantua, and the shade, all in itself recluse, rose towards him from the place where first it was, saying, O Mantuan, I am Sordello, of thine own land, and one embraced the other. Ah, servile Italy, grieves hostelry, a ship without a pilot in great tempest. No lady thou of provinces, but brothel. That noble soul was so impatient only at the sweet sound of his own native land, to make its citizen glad welcome there. And now within thee are not without war, thy living ones, and one doth gnaw the other, of those whom one wall and one fosse shut in. Search, wretched one, all round about the shores thy seabird, and then look within thy bosom, if any part of thee enjoyeth peace. What boots it that for thee, Justinian, the bridle mend, if empty be the saddle? Withouten this the shame would be less. Ah, people, thou that oughtest to be devout, and to let Caesar sit upon the saddle, if well thou hearest what God teacheth thee, behold how fell this wild beast has become, being no longer by the spur corrected, since thou hast laid thy hand upon the bridle, O German Albert, who abandonest her that has grown recalcitrant and savage, and oughtest to bestride her saddle bow. May a just judgment from the stars down fall upon thy blood, and be it new and open, that thy successor may have fear thereof. Because thy father and thyself have suffered by greed of those transalpine lands distrained, the garden of the empire to be waste. Come, and behold Montecchi and Cappelletti, Monaldi and Filippeschi, careless man, those sad already in these doubt depressed. Come, cruel one, come, and behold the oppression of thy nobility, and cure their wounds, and thou shalt see how safe is Santa Fiore. Come, and behold thy Rome, that is lamenting, widowed, alone, and day and night exclaims, My Caesar, why hast thou forsaken me? Come, and behold how loving are the people, and if for us no pity moveth thee, come, and be made ashamed of thy renown. And if it lawful be, O Jove supreme, who upon earth for us was crucified, and are thy just eyes averted otherwise? Or preparation is it that in the abyss of thine own counsel for some good thou makest from our perception utterly cut off? For all the towns of Italy are full of tyrants, and become a Marcellus, each peasant churl who plays the partisan. My Florence, well mayest thou contend be with this digression which concerns thee not, thanks to thy people who such forethought take. Many at heart have justice, but shoot slowly, that unadvised they come not to the bow, but on their very lips thy people have it. Many refuse to bear the common burden, but thy solicitous people answereth without being asked, and crieth, I submit. Now, be thou joyful, for thou hast good reason. Thou affluent, thou in peace, thou full of wisdom. If I speak true, the event conceals it not. Athens and Lacedaemon, they who made the ancient laws and were so civilized, made towards living well a little sign compared to thee, who makest such fine-spun provisions that to middle of November reaches not what thou in October spinnest. How oft within the time of thy remembrance, law, money, offices, and usages, hast thou remodeled and renewed thy members? And if thou mind thee well, and see the light, thou shalt behold thyself like a sick woman who cannot find repose upon her down, but by her tossing wardeth off her pain. Okay, now this one seems to be not as meaty, right? This one seems to be a little bit more history. This one seems to be a little bit more filler. There is some things that could be taken, like the parts where they're talking about the heart and stuff. That is absolutely still in the progression, but it wasn't as meaty. There is some manifestation happening here. There are people making things in abundance, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that they're manifesting it, but I believe that that is part of the process, right? If you are believing that it happens, that is part of the process of manifesting. You are doing it one way or the other. You should be doing it consciously. That's what I'm trying to help you to get to. Well, but this didn't seem to be as meaty as the other, so there's not as much here for me to dig into. Let's get into Canto 7. After the gracious and glad salutations had 3 and 4 times been reiterated, Sordello backward drew and said, "Who are you?" Or ever to this mountain were directed the souls deserving to ascend to God. My bones were buried by Octavian. I am Virgilius, and for no crime else did I lose heaven than for not having faith. In this wise, then, my leader made reply, as one who suddenly before him sees something whereat he marvels, who believes and yet does not, saying, it is not. So he appeared, and then bowed down his brow, and with humility returned towards him, and, where inferiors embraced him. O glory of the Latians thou, he said, through whom our language showed what it could do. O pride eternal of the place I come from, what merit or what grace to me reveals thee? If I to hear thy words be worthy, tell me, if thou dost come from hell, and from what cloister? Through all the circles of that doleful realm, responded he, have I come hitherward. Heaven's power impelled me, and with that I come. I, not by doing, lost the sight of that high sun which thou desirest, and which too late by me was recognized. A place there is below, not sad with torments, but darkness only, where the lamentations have not the sound of wailing, but are sighs. There dwell I with the little innocents, snatched by the teeth of death, or ever they were from our human sinfulness exempt. There dwell I among those who the 3 saintly virtues did not put on, and without vice the others knew, and followed all of them. But if thou know and can, some indication give us by which we may the sooner come where purgatory has its right beginning. He answered, no fixed place has been assigned us. 'Tis lawful for me to go up and round, as so far as I can go, as guide I join thee. But see already how the day declines, and to go up by night we are not able. Therefore 'tis well to think of some fair sojourn. Souls are there on the right hand here withdrawn. If you permit me, I will lead thee to them, and thou shalt know them not without delight. How is this? Was the answer. Should one wish to mount by night, would he be befriended by others? And mayhap would not have power. And on the ground the good Sordello drew his finger, saying, see this line alone? Thou couldst not pass after the sun is gone. Not that aught else would hindrance give, however, to going up, save the nocturnal darkness. This with the want of power the will perplexes. We might, indeed, therewith return below, and, wandering, walk the hillside round about, while the horizon holds the day imprisoned. Thereon my lord, as if in wonder, saith, do you conduct us thither, where thou sayest that we can take delight in tarrying? Little had we withdrawn from us that place when I perceived the mount was hollowed out, in fashion as the valleys here are hollowed. Thitherward, said that shade, will we repair, where of itself the hillside makes a lap, and there, for the new day, will we await. Twixt hill and plain there was a winding path which led us to the margin of that dell, where dies the border more than half away. Gold, and fine silver, and scarlet, and pearl white, the Indian wood resplendent and serene, fresh emerald, the moment it is broken. By herbage and by flowers within that hollow planted, each one in color would be less vanquished, as by its greater vanquished is the less. Nor in that place had nature painted only, but of the sweetness of 1,000 odors, made there a mingled fragrance and unknown. Salve Regina on the green, and flowers were seated singing, spirits I beheld, which were not visible outside the valley. Before the scanty sun seeks its nest, began the Mantuan who had led us thither. Among them do not wish me to conduct you. Better from off this ledge the acts and faces of all of them you will discriminate, than in the plain below received among them. He who sits highest and the semblance bears of having what he should have done neglected, and to the others songs move not his lips. Rudolph the emperor was who had the power to heal the wounds that Italy have slain, so that through the others slowly she revives. The other, who in look doth comfort him, govern the region where the water springs. The Moldau bears the Elbe, and the Elbe the sea. His name was Ottokar, and in swaddling clothes, far better he than bearded Wenceslas, his son, who feeds in luxury and ease. The small-nosed, who close in counsel seems with him that has an aspect so benign, died fleeing and disflowering the lily. Look there, how he is beating at his breast. Behold the other one, who, for his cheek, sighing, made of his own palm a bed. Father and father-in-law of Francis Pest are they, and know his vicious life and lewd, and hence proceeds the grief that so doth pierce them. He who appears so stalwart and chimes in, singing, with that one of the manly nose, the cord of every valor war begirt. And if as king after him remain the stripling who in rear of him is sitting, well had the valor passed from vase to vase, which cannot of the other heirs be said. Frederick and Giacomo possess the realms, but none the better heritage possess. Not oftentimes upriseth through the branches the probity of man, and this he wills, who gives it, so that we may ask of him. Eke to the large nose reach my words no less than to the other, Pierre, who with him sings, whereby Provence and Apulia grieve already. This plant is as inferior to its seed as more than Beatrice and Margaret. Costanza boasteth of her husband still. Behold, the monarch of the simple life, Harry of England, sitting there alone. He in his branches has a better issue. He, who is lowest on the ground, round about among them, sits looking upward, as the Marquis William, for whose sake Alessandria and her war make Montferrat and Canavese weep. Okay, so ends Canto 7. In this one, we take a pause. Okay? There's an interesting part of the process when you are doing the actual work of drawing the energy through the chakras. You are required at certain times to take diversions and pauses. The heart to the throat is one of those places where you have to find the diversion and you have to will into, right? It is the place of darkness to stop. This is the place that appears where all of these people are sitting, right in the green. Right? The heart is the green. And so they're all sitting right there among the green. We had the green color inserted in so that we knew. That means that most of these people probably, in his estimation, had the best interest at heart, but the execution wasn't quite right. It requires, there's several references to the noses, right? That is talking about the interaction between the heart and the throat. It's not quite to the third eye, which is above the nose, but the throat chakra really kind of occupies, like it's about the size of your fist, and it's right at the roof of your mouth. Like you have the very bottom of it where your vocal cords are, like I think it's this, but at the top, right towards the roof of your mouth is the top part of the chakra. So that's right at the nose and the nasal cavity. That's why your intonations can go through your nose and out through your throat. Is how you can vary that. We got a whole video on that too, but there is a point right there. You will find it if you are doing the work where you have to find the diversion. It requires moving along the path in a different manner so that you can direct the energy in a degree along the measure of about 33 from the back here up through, right? So the diversion is you have to take the energy up into the throat and then bring it around the back side of the chakra, right? It has to come around the back side, cleansed, whole, healed, and all of those things. And then you have to take it from the backside and shoot it through the third eye at a 33-degree angle. If you look at it, a cross section of the pyramid where it goes, like the power comes up and then it goes back like this, and then it shoots up like that, and then it goes up, right? That's telling you something. That is literally how that energy transfer has to happen. And you may find that information somewhere else, but it's not something that I found from anyone else. It's something that I had to find on my own, and I did find it on my own, and so my third eye works just fine. Next up, let's see what's going on in Canto 8, which is probably where we're going to wrap it up today. "'Twas now the hour that turneth back desire in those who sail the sea and melt the heart. The day they've said to their sweet friends, farewell, they said, and the new pilgrim penetrates with love, if he doth hear from far away a bell that seemeth to deplore the dying day. When I began to make of no avail my hearing, and to watch one of the souls uprisen that begged attention with its hand. It joined and lifted upward both its palms, fixing its eyes upon the Orient, as if it said to God, nothing else I care for. Te lucis ante, so devoutly issued forth from its mouth, and with such dulcet notes, it made me issue forth from my own mind. And then the others sweetly and devoutly accompanied it through the hymn entire, having their eyes upon the supernal wheels. Here, reader, fix thine eyes well on the truth, for now indeed so subtle is the veil. Surely to penetrate within is easy. I saw that army of the gentle-born, thereafter in silence upward gaze, as if in expectation, pale and humble. And from on high come forth and down descend. I saw two angels with two flaming swords, truncated and deprived of their points. Green as the little leaflets just now born their garments were, which, by their verdant pinions, beaten and blown abroad, they trailed behind. One, just above us, came to take his station, and one descended to the opposite bank, so that the people were contained between them. Clearly in them I discerned the blond head, but in their faces was the eye bewildered as faculty confounded by excess. From Mary's bosom both of them have come, Sordello said, as guardians of the valley, against the serpent that will come anon. Whereupon I, who knew not by that what road, turned round about and closely drew myself, utterly frozen, to the faithful shoulders. And once again, Sordello, now descend we, mid the grand shades, and we will speak to them. Right pleasant will it be for them to see you. Only 3 steps, I think, that I descended and was below, and saw one who was looking only at me, as if he fain would know me. Already now the air was growing dark, but not so that between his eyes and mine I did not show what it before locked up. Towards me he moved, and I towards him did move. Noble Judge Nino, how at me delighted when I beheld thee not among the damned! No greeting fair was left unsaid between us. Then asked he, How long is it since thou camest over the far waters to the mountain's foot? Oh, said I to him, through the dismal places I came this morn, and am in the first life, albeit the other, going thus I gain. And on the instant my reply was heard, he and Sordello both shrank back from me like people who are suddenly bewildered. One to Virgilius, and the other turned to one who sat there, crying, Up, curado, come and behold what God in grace has willed. Then turned to me, By that especial grace thou owest unto him, who so conceals his own first wherefore, that it has no ford. When thou shalt be beyond the waters wide, tell my Giovanna that she pray for me where answer to the innocent is made. I do not think her mother loves me more, since she has laid aside her wimple white, which she, unhappy, needs must wish again, Through her full easily is comprehended how long in woman lasts the fire of love, if eye or touch do not relight it often. So fair a hatchment will not make for her the viper, marshalling the Milanese afield, as would have made Galura's cock. In this wise spake he, with the stamp impressed upon his aspect of that righteous zeal which measurably burneth in the heart. My greedy eyes still wandered up to heaven, still to that point where slowest are the stars, even as a wheel the nearest to its axle. And my conductor, Son, what dost thou gaze at up there? And I to him, at those 3 torches, with which this hither pole is all on fire. And he to me, the 4 resplendent stars thou sawest this morning are down yonder low, and these have mounted up to where those were. As he was speaking to himself, Sordello drew him and said,
Lo, there is our adversary, and pointed with his finger to look thither.
Upon the side on which the little valley no barrier hath, a serpent was, perchance, the same which gave Eve the bitter food. Twixt grass and flowers came on the evil streak, turning at times its head about and licking its back like to a beast that smoothed itself. I did not see, and therefore cannot say, how the celestial falcons began to move, but well I saw that they were both in motion. Hearing the air cleft by their verdant wings, the serpent fled, and round the angels wheeled, up to their stations flying back alike. The shade that to the judge had near approached when he had called throughout the whole assault had not a moment loosed its gaze on me. So may the light that leadeth thee on high find in thine own free will as much of wax as needful to go up to the highest azure. Come on. Began it. If some true intelligence of Val de Magra or its neighborhood thou knowest, tell it to me, who once was there. Curado Malaspino was I called. I'm not the elder, but from him descended. To mine I bore the love, from which here refineth. Oh, I said unto him, through your domains I never passed, but where is there a dwelling throughout all Europe where they are not known? That fame which doth honor your house proclaims its seigneurs, and proclaims its land, so that he knows of them who never was there. And as I hope for heaven, I swear to you, your honored family in naught abates the glory of the purse and of the sword. It is so privileged by use and nature that, though a guilty head misguide the world, soul it goes right and scorns the evil way. And he, now go, for the sun shall not lie 7 times upon the pillow which the ram with all 4 feet covers and bestrides, before that such courteous opinion shall in the middle of thy head be nailed, with greater nails than of another speech, unless the course of justice standeth still. And so ends Canto 8. And this is the transition point between the heart and the throat. Right? It is aspiring towards the azure, which is violet, but it is beginning the movement and pinning it into your mind. There is a process involved, right? There is a long, protracted process if you are doing it correctly. If you do it all in one day, you are doing it wrong. If it is happening within a month, you are doing it wrong. I don't say that with some kind of an ego thing going on. I'm just letting you know. If you rush it, it won't work right. If you do it correctly, if you take the time to take the steps to work through the entirety of the stack, to pull the energy and to cleanse it in the manner which it needs to be cleansed before you pull it any further. If you take the time to do those things, you will begin to feel the manifestation effects happen in your life. Things will change in your life. There are powers given to you. This very much from this one, right? This hasn't happened prior to this, right? No, we went all the way through hell, and it's like, yeah, that's a history lesson, but it's not doctrine. Yeah, that's a history lesson, but it's not doctrine.
This one's pretty close to where I am at on the path. Not really doctrine, but closer to it than anything we saw in hell. There may be worth rereading hell, we will see after we get through, but this very much feels like a lock. It feels like you have to have the key if you want to unlock it in the correct manner. I am giving you the key. Like, in no uncertain terms, the things I am talking about, I have done. I have had the effects. I have taken the time. I have ensured that I am correct and I am following the laws. I have spent the time. I am doing the things that I am talking about. Now, whether you can or not, I don't know. I assume you can because it is not something extra that I am doing other than doing the discipline. Prayer, fasting, meditation. Focus on God. Keep the correct mind and attitude. Pull the energy with intention. Do the things, none of it arbitrarily. Seek your shadow and cleanse it first. Do the hard work before you try to get to the light work. Always put in the root work.
Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to something I really was not expecting. This can entirely be me reading into it things that are not there. I understand that, but it really fits the key. It may not be a lock, but it sure passes the test. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, it's probably a duck. Seems like this might be some knowledge. This might actually be something worth paying attention to. I am, again, like I was happy with just the historical aspects, just having things to go back and look up. This is meat. I'm happy with this. If you like what I'm doing here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and throw me a comment. Let me know if you like it. If you let me know if you don't. If you agree, if you disagree. It's all down below if you want. Keep it respectful, and I'll let it stay up. If you really like what I'm doing here, hit me with the super things. To the crew.
Thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt's Take. Peace.